Your thyroid plays a vital role in your sex hormone production, which is pretty critical in perimenopause. As many as 60% of people have an undiagnosed thyroid condition, with 5 to 8 times more of those people likely being women over men. This is the episode for you to learn more about your thyroid and how to ask for the right markers on your thyroid test with your primary care practitioner. Tune in to learn why getting your thyroid tested can help you feel better in perimenopause and what markers you should ask for on your thyroid panel. Let's dive in.
What's up, sister? Welcome back to the Period Whisperer podcast, the show helping perimenopause and menopause women de-stress your body and decode what it's saying to you so you can own your own health, energy, and weight loss again. If you're new, I'm so happy you're here. I'm Bria. I'm your host, a recovering people pleaser and hustle addict turned functional and holistic hormone specialist. Let's lean in and learn what your body is saying to you.
Hey there, sister. Happy Monday. I hope if you're listening to this live, if not, I'm just glad you're here. Welcome to the Period Whisperer podcast. And I hope that you are feeling amazing in your body. And if you're not, I'm just so happy that you're here starting to make efforts towards prioritizing your health. That's always the first step, right? Becoming aware of what's going on, learning what's going on, and of course, starting to pay attention to how you are feeling in your body and what your body is saying to you. On this episode, I want to dive into what I am really feeling more and more strongly about is such a key topic, which is our thyroid, and not just what it's for and why it matters for our hormones, but how we can get better health and better testing done just by simply asking for different markers on our thyroid panel and better understanding what those markers are. So this might be one of those podcast episodes where you want to take notes or you want to come back to it, because I am going to give you the 11 markers that I look for as a functional practitioner on a thyroid panel to truly understand more of a root cause and what's really going on, when traditionally our primary care physicians are really trained just to look at 1 to 3 of these markers, and it just doesn't tell that whole story, right? I always feel like our primary care physicians have really important jobs. They're out there trying to diagnose things specifically, but there's a lot of steps that happen in our body before we get to the point of needing a diagnosis that we can work on and we can help. And that's really one of my goals, is to help women better understand what their body is saying so that we don't get to the point where we have a diagnosis, right? This is, I think, one of the gifts of perimenopause, is that this added workload of the hormonal shift of our body really starts to irritate stuff that's already there. So if we can start listening, if we can be educated, if we can know our bodies now, then we can actually fix these things, heal these hidden stressors in our body so that we never have to get to that diagnosis. So that even if we have a loaded gun or a genetic condition in us, that we don't pull that trigger on that piece. And that, I think, is one of the keys to thriving. Plus, one of the, I think, the crux of what causes so many perimenopause issues for us, that makes us suffer so much in this, is really that it all comes down to energy supply and demand. If your energy supply in your body is not meeting your demand because of how you're eating, because of the toxins you're exposed to, because of your habits, because of, kinked supply chains of energy in your body. So there's a lot of ways that supply can struggle in our health, bringing us energy. If we can improve these, then all of a sudden we open up a much better pipeline of energy to our body so that we can thrive longer and live longer, healthier lives. A lot of women are coming to me with really the goal of weight loss, and I think one of the most important things that I always want to spread in terms of information is that a body will not release weight unless it has, like when you're pushing it to release weight, like when you're doing a calorie deficit or you are, working out, the body will not release weight unless it has a surplus of energy to do so, because it's going to conserve a lot of the time. It needs to have enough energy to function. Otherwise, it's like walking in a desert with a limited amount of water. We're going to conserve that water or conserve that energy for survival. And this is why a lot of you out there are, working out hard and not seeing changes in your body, or you're just feeling darn exhausted. So we're going to talk about the thyroid because I have been noticing more and more on Dutch Labs, which is one of the most incredible lab that I love to run for all of my clients. And it's included in my Midlife Mojo signature program, because it not only looks at our adrenal hormones, which are critical, but also our sex hormones and the function of those. So the pathway to who's telling these hormones what to do, and the pathway of where those hormones are going, because those are just as important as the amounts. That often gives us more of the root cause issue. Why are the hormones struggling? Why are the amounts of them? Why are they imbalanced? Because the messaging is off, or the pathway is bunged up, or just not going the direction we want it to be. And on a Dutch panel, what I love is that we get a really good look at cortisol, which we hear about a lot. It's sort of our main stress hormone coming from our adrenals. And cortisol on the Dutch, we get to see not only free cortisol, so the cortisol that's available, but metabolized cortisol, the cortisol that we're making. So we get to see these two markers, and really they should be in a very similar place when we look at them. But more and more on Dutch panels, I'm seeing them look in very different directions, showing a sluggish clearance or a rapid clearance, which point fingers to the thyroid. And when I think about the hierarchy of our body, if you've been listening to me for a while, you hear me talk a lot about how our hormones, immune system, digestion, detoxification, energy production, nervous system, they're all connected like an orchestra. And even though they're all connected, so problems can kind of go both ways, we know that our gut, for example, it plays a key role in both the messaging to the hormones, because it needs to be able to break down and absorb and create the tools for the hormones to be made, and also the clearance of them. So it kind of plays two major roles. Likewise, our HPA axis, like our stress management system in our body, it plays a really massive role. And downstream from that is our thyroid, and downstream from that is our sex hormones. So when something is off in our thyroid, we are definitely going to start seeing, if we don't already, issues in our sex hormones. So as many as 60% of people have an undiagnosed thyroid condition. And if you don't know what your thyroid is, I love this. It comes from the Greek word thyros, meaning shield. It's like this butterfly-shaped gland situated over your Adam's apple. And it is responsible for so many things in our body. But thyroid dysfunction occurs when the thyroid gland produces too much or too little thyroid hormone, impacting metabolism, energy levels, mood. Do these sound familiar when we're talking about symptoms in perimenopause that I know a lot of women are struggling with? We're talking about temperature issues. We're talking about fatigue. We're talking about energy. We're talking about ability to lose weight. All of these can also fall under the category of thyroid issues. So we're thinking, oh no, it's my hormones, when really it could be, we're thinking it's our sex hormones, but really it could be our thyroid hormones. It could be our adrenal hormones. So getting our thyroid checked and better understanding what we're looking for, I think goes a long way. And you don't need to be an expert in this, but what I want to offer you today is a little bit more understanding of the powerful impact of this gland in your body, how it impacts our sex hormones, and what you can ask for of your primary care practitioner, or what you can come to me for, a functional practitioner like me, and get. Because if we can have a bigger picture of all of the markers and not just the few that are being tested, then we can start to get more deeply into that root cause. But, women are significantly more likely to experience thyroid issues than men, with, as I said, many cases remaining undiagnosed, or they're needing to get to a point where it's so bad that now we have an actual thyroid disease. And I'll talk about those specifically. But again, as many as 20 million Americans have some form of thyroid disease, and 60% are undiagnosed. So that tells you a lot of people. And again, women are 5 to 8 times more likely to be affected than men. And the primary forms of thyroid dysfunction are hyperthyroidism, which is overactive thyroid, or hypothyroidism, which is underactive. And I see that one a lot more in my clients. And because I think this is when we start to experience a lot more fatigue, a lot more weight gain. And that's when I think we start to pay attention a little bit more as women. But your thyroid is really considered the master of metabolic function throughout the body. Again, it controls your metabolism at that cellular level. So it impacts body temperature, bone health, glucose metabolism, hormone metabolism, nutrient absorption, digestion, and intestinal motility. So we're getting into the gut, liver function and detoxification, aging, right? You start to see people that, where 45 looks a lot different on different people, cholesterol levels, fat metabolism. In fact, every cell in the body has receptors for thyroid hormone, bone cells, liver cells, brain cells, immune cells, mucosal barrier cells, etc. And the thyroid hormone is, I should say, the only other hormone that has receptors in the entire cell membrane and every cell membrane in the body other than thyroid is vitamin D. So it's a pretty important piece. And when we're talking about, symptoms of thyroid dysfunction, we're looking at, everything from hair loss, inability to think clearly, reduced heart rate, fatigue, sensitivity to cold or heat, dry skin, sleep disturbances, weight gain, puffiness or shortness of breath, digestive issues, irregular menstrual periods, right? These are all things that we talk about: joint and muscle pain, depression and mood swings, anxiety. These are all things that we experience and we hear as common symptoms of perimenopause, when in fact, they can very well be common symptoms of thyroid dysfunction. So we want to start to understand, again, that these things can come from so many different places in our body. And when we do functional lab work, when I work one-on-one with my clients or in Midlife Mojo and the group coaching program, we're not just creating the foundation of health with creating habits that are critical for success, but we're also looking at functional labs that are helping us get to the root cause of the issue, and not just guessing and trying out supplements and hoping that they make a difference, which I appreciate. I used to do that all the time. We want to test first. We want to know where the problem is, so that when we invest in supplements, that one, it's a quality supplement, and that supplement has an actual purpose in our body and isn't causing more issues or just being wasted. So I think one of the most important things, when we know that the thyroid is such a key piece of the puzzle, we want to start to understand, well, what causes thyroid dysfunction? And there's a few key areas that can really can have your thyroid go off. One is like any type of gastrointestinal dysfunction. So when your gut goes off, that can set off your thyroid. Your detoxification dysfunction. So if we're having issues in a liver with our congested liver, that can back up and cause issues into the thyroid. Immune dysfunction. Of course, nutritional factors, right? If we're not eating the right foods for our metabolic type, for our body, or we're eating inflammatory foods, that can cause issues. HPA axis dysfunction, which is a really big one, right? That has a lot to do with our ability to fall asleep at night, wake up in the morning, feel hungry throughout the day. So if we're not having those normal cues and we're kind of upside down and sideways in when we're awake and when we're feeling tired, that's going to throw off the thyroid. And of course, environmental factors. I've been starting to talk more and more in the Elevated Hormone Hub. So if you're not in the Elevated Hormone Hub, it's a free community where I talk about a lot of specific products and things to help improve the toxins in your life. So make sure you check out my website to get into that. But there's a lot of these areas that can throw off the thyroid. And it has, as we now know, it has a really big role in the body, and it will throw off those sex hormones. So we want to know those things because it really impacts a lot. Now, typically what happens is if we have a predisposition to thyroid issues, then maybe our primary care practitioner will run some lab work for us. If we don't, it's not even that common that they'll even run it unless we ask. And yet now you and I both know how important it is. When I run labs on my perimenopause clients, the standard labs are always going to be a GI map, a Dutch panel. So we're getting a look at the gut and everything, the stressors and everything going on there. The Dutch is going to give us a good understanding of what's going on in the HPA axis, in the sex hormones, in the liver, and it's going to point fingers to the thyroid. And I love to run a full thyroid panel because I want to see what's going on here. So typically though, when we do have a thyroid panel done, and I look at these a lot from my clients who say, well, I've had my thyroid checked, can you take a look at it? And we have some kind of standard markers. So what's really common to look at when our conventional medicine practitioners are looking to thyroid is thyroid stimulating hormone, which is called TSH. Obviously, that is an important one. It's like what's first initiated when we want to stimulate the hormone to create, to send hormone throughout the body, which again regulates all of these aspects of us. And maybe we will get total T4, free T4, and free T3. And that's it. And although I think those are really important markers, when we're talking about TSH, we're talking about the amount of TSH produced by the pituitary gland. So we're talking about the amount of hormone. But when we're only looking at TSH, T4, free T4, and free T3, it's just like going and having your blood test done and only looking at the level of your estradiol, progesterone, and testosterone. It's missing so many pieces of the puzzle. It's not telling us how those hormones are in relation to each other, right? Because if one is way more than the other, that can start to cause issues in the body. It's not telling the story of many of the other markers that impact the pathway of where these hormones and how these hormones get through your body. So it might be that you have these 4 markers tested on your thyroid panel and they're within range, which I always, if you could see me, I have air quotes here, because I think we always want to be aware of within the typical medical range, because the average range in the medical world is really looking at all the people of all the healths of all the world, which is a lot different than optimal range, right? Optimal health range. And I don't know about you, but I want to feel optimal, not average, right? So I want to be in the range of optimal health. So right away, we're getting this massive range. And I really think of it, I heard someone explain it once like a shoe, right? So if within range for your levels, whether it's your sex hormones or your thyroid hormones or whatever, is a size 5 to a size 10 of shoe, I mean, that feels really different on different people. I'm a size 7. I'm a size 9. So if I try to fit my foot in a size 5, that's going to be really uncomfortable. If I try to fit my foot in a size 10, it's going to be harder to walk in. I might manage, but we want to think about that as well. So when we're getting these typical 1 to 3 or 4 markers tested, we're only looking at, again, the level of the amount, and the range is broad. So when you work with a functional practitioner, we're going to be able to look at more of an optimal range, because most of you out there, you're wanting to feel optimized. You're wanting to feel great, not just average, right? Am I right? I hope you're nodding with me right now. So here are some other markers that in your thyroid that we want to get checked, and you can ask for them in your blood serum from your doctor. If they won't run it for you, you just reach out to me and we can talk about seeing if we can run it for you, and certainly being able to explain these markers to you and how that is impacting is really important. So along with your TSH, your thyroid stimulating hormone, we want to look at total T4, right? So that's the total amount, bound and unbound, of the hormone. And then we want to look at the free T4, right? The unbound and available for conversion, because we need to see both of those levels. Same thing with T3. Often I'm looking at labs and we're not even seeing the total amount. We're just seeing the free T3, but that doesn't tell me how that conversion is going, because you might be thriving. You might need a lot more than someone else in order to thrive, right? You might be a size 10 and not a size 5. So we want thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH, total T4 and free T4, total T3 and free T3. And we really want to make sure we get reverse T3. This is a key one that we don't see on typical labs. But when we're talking about our metabolism, I want you to think of T3 as something that helps, as like the gas pedal that helps rev your metabolism, whereas reverse T3 is like the brakes that put on the brakes to your metabolism. So you might seem to have normal T3, but if your reverse T3 is high or higher, then we're kind of getting stuck and not going anywhere. And there's, of course, herbs and supplements and lifestyle things that we can do to work on that piece. So we want to get reverse T3. We also want to get thyroid globulin, which is the protein precursor to thyroid hormone synthesis, right? This is where iodine is stored. We want to understand this, right? We want to know, because it starts to help us know where the problems lie. We want to look at thyroid binding globulin. The thyroid binding globulin, or TBG, is required to transport the protein for T4 and T3. So this again can help us understand, is there an issue with the pathway, with where the hormones are going in the body? Because maybe your levels are fine, but we're not receiving the hormone. I see this a lot in our sex hormones as well. TPO, or thyroid peroxidase antibodies, are antibodies that attack thyroid peroxidase. We kind of want to know how those are going, because that might be causing issues down the line somewhere for you. And of course, anti-thyroid globulin antibodies, which is TGAB, antibodies that attack thyroid globulin. So we want to ask for more of these markers, and there's one more here, thyroid stimulating immunoglobulins, or TSI. I do see this one sometimes pop up. These are antibodies that attack the TSH receptors. So we want to start asking our primary care practitioner for more things than just the basics, because we want to start to look for not just the levels and the massive range that those levels can be in, but the pathway and the messaging system of this hormone into our body. If thyroid hormone is present in every cell in our body, then getting that thyroid from your thyroid gland to every part of your body is just as critical as the production and amount that you have. I hope this is making sense, and I know it can feel like a lot. So if you are overwhelmed and you want to better understand how to look at not just the levels in your body, but how to see where the root cause really is in the messaging, in the pathways, so that we can actually get you feeling better, I want to make sure that you reach out, that you schedule a free consultation, so that we can take the time to better understand if I can help, what that looks like. It will always, always, always include nutrition, exercise, stress management, sleep. Those are critical foundational pieces. But what we work on is, what are the things getting in the way of these key pieces? Because these 4 pieces shouldn't be hard. And if they're hard, then we need to figure out why they are hard, right? If it's difficult for you to make healthy choices in your nutrition, or get a really good night's sleep, or move your body for 10,000 steps, or manage your stress, then we need to understand why. And that's what using functional lab work can be so helpful to do, because if we're struggling in any of those areas, likely it's an issue with broken supply chain of energy in the body. And when we find where those kinks are and start to work on the specific root causes of issues in your body, we start to feel a lot better. And this is what I love so much hearing from my clients, is when they're just, I had a beautiful client today just saying, I can't get over how much better I feel. Like I just am like a different person. And that's really how you should feel, certainly in your 40s and 50s. So reach out. If I can do that, swipe up, book a free call. But next time you go to your healthcare practitioner, ask for a thyroid lab. Ask for a complete thyroid checkup. We want to know the TSH, the total and free T4, the total and free T3, the reverse T3, the thyroid globulin, the thyroid binding globulin, the thyroid peroxidase antibody, the anti-thyroid globulin antibodies, and the thyroid stimulating immunoglobulins. That's a lot of mouthful, and I know that. So make sure you send me an email or reach out on Instagram if you have some questions on that. Or hey, like I said, book a call, sister. When you know better, you do better. Go out, be more in your life and not just less on a scale, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Period Whisperer podcast. If you liked this episode, take 30 seconds right now to write a review on iTunes and then reach out to me directly on Instagram at Bria_period_whisperer and message me there with a screenshot of your review. As a thank you, I will give you a customized free hormone audit to get you on your way to the best health of your life in midlife.